Quick World War III update before the weekend. Tomahawk missiles have now been fully authorized officially by the Pentagon for distribution to the Ukrainians to use against Moscow to initiate the hot phase of World War III. Of course, the final say rests in the hands of the POTUS. We're going to talk about this situation in just a moment. Pete Hegseth has tripled down and confirmed that the United States will in fact recommence nuclear weapons testing in short order when asked by the press today. We're not talking about simulations, we're not talking about subcritical tests, and we're not talking about the weapons platform systems. We are talking about the testing of actual nuclear weapons, detonations. It's going to happen, and it's probably not going to take too long. The Whitehouse lockdown is intensifying. Now we have press banned from in and around the Oval Office unless they have special approval. It is starting to emulate exactly what they're doing with the Pentagon, where they've basically now cherry-picked a handful of obsequious press who are vying and trying to monkey branch in any way they can out of the alternative media and into something more relevant. Well, now only they are going to be authorized to report the news that is going to come directly from the Pentagon filters. Puerto Rico is on watch. A new notice to airmen has been issued, effectively shutting down airspace in between that country and Venezuela for the foreseeable future. Could this be a head fake? Are they really getting prepared to do something else somewhere around the world? It seems like they're antagonizing all theaters at the same time. And let's not forget the Israelis are still bombing Gaza on a regular, and Donald Trump hasn't said a damn thing up until this point. SNAP benefits have now been authorized to be distributed by a Rhode Island judge who's blocked the Trump administration from halting the benefits. But the Trump administration is saying, look, until the government reopens, we're not going to have the money to do this. So where do you expect me to find the money? So I think he turned it around on the judge, and I'm not sure what this is going to really translate into legally speaking. But he's basically saying, if you can help us find the money to fund it, then we will do that. Of course, both sides are using this as a political hot button issue. Russia has reintroduced the 9M729 cruise missile into the fight. This was a missile that was banned under the INF treaty that existed before Trump's first term. Isn't it a coincidence, don't you think, that a missile which is very comparable to the Tomahawk missile has now been greenlit for use inside Russia on the same day that the Pentagon has greenlit use in Ukraine? Interesting, isn't it? Lukashenko is threatening the Baltic states with nuclear annihilation, flexing the Orezhnik system, which will be arriving there in about a month's time. Venezuela is on a very high state of alert because it appears as though, in defiance of the United Nations and pretty much the entire world, I don't even think Congress has been spoken to about what is going on. They're just going to unilaterally enter into a war with another country, and it's incredible how little media attention it is getting, isn't it? Medvedev has escalated rhetoric against Brussels. Recall that the Belgian defense minister threatened to wipe Moscow off the face of the earth just a couple days ago. Well, Brussels, home to NATO, is now in the crosshairs, once again, as if they ever weren't in the crosshairs of the Russians, as Medvedev says that they might have to test out one of their new doomsday weapons and put one smack dab in the middle of NATO headquarters. Now, at the time of making this video, there was a massive drone bombardment across Russia. Remember yesterday I told you that there was multi-layered air defense in the hundreds positioned around Moscow. Well, apparently a couple regions have been blacked out tonight once again. Recall that Zelensky just yesterday said that they were going to be intensifying their attacks against Russia. So something big is going down. All of these things are connected. You can't tell me that they're moving all the officials on the military bases, they're banning the press, they're doing everything that they're doing. If you want a quick crash course in that, watch the 15-minute video I made yesterday where I enumerate all, and I chronicle it, all of the events of the last few months that have led to this very point of peril. This Tomahawk missile, go ahead, by the Pentagon is interesting because, of course, it leaves the final decision in the hands of the POTUS. Now, I highly doubt that they would make this official and serve this up because, of course, they control the press at the Pentagon right now. So anything they say, they definitely want people to know about. And, of course, this is their way of telegraphing and doing a shot across the bow of sorts at the Russians to say, we're getting ready to do it, so you better make a concession soon. We all know the Russians aren't going to make any concessions, and certainly not soon. So they're really putting this in Trump's hands. Now, they wouldn't do that if Trump was going to look like an idiot or he was going to look like a warmonger. We all know that Pete Hegseth is a good little sycophantic lapdog who will do anything that Donald Trump says. So it's very unlikely that the Pentagon would have released this statement at all if it wasn't approved by the executive branch, by the President of the United States of America. So you can bet that once they finally say that, yes, we've approved the shipment of Tomahawk missiles, well, you can almost guarantee that they're already within the vicinity of Ukraine, somewhere in and around. And I guess the problem might be if the Russians don't know where these things are being fired from, they might have to target the launchers that are currently in Poland, okay? And that's when things get a little bit weird. So a story like that would have probably captured all the media headlines were it not for the fixation on what's going on in Venezuela or what is not going on. Because one still has to wonder, remember when all the stuff was going on at Diego Garcia and not much happened? But I think in between the Diego Garcia debacle, where they were moving stealth bombers there and there was this massive military buildup, and the actual attack on Iran, which was months later, at least a couple months later, I think. Maybe it was not quite that long. But there was a war with Pakistan and India that started. And at the time I was saying, you know, it's interesting because Diego Garcia was somewhat equidistant to all the three major theaters, be it the Middle East, the India-Pakistan conflict, and even the Indo-Pacific as well. So could this just be a head fake? I mean, they're still waiting for the carrier strike group to enter into the fray, and apparently that's going to not take place until around mid-November because they're currently making their way across the Atlantic Ocean at the time of this video, but they still have to link up with other ships or something like that. And or could they really actually want to go for Iran, and they're doing all this stuff hoping that Iran rests on its laurels and gets their generals out of the bunker? The Iranian generals have been in the bunker pretty much ever since the last war. So it almost seems like they're trying to divert attention away. We'll talk about Venezuela, what I know about it in just a moment, and I don't know a whole lot. I know what you guys know, essentially. The real question is, what are the broader geopolitical implications? Are they doing this because they're trying to interdict China? Now they're saying on the Pacific side of the Caribbean, that is where they need to start amassing force as well, as if to create some sort of blockade from the Chinese accessing the Panama Canal, possibly. Something big is going on, okay? Something big is going down. And now the Whitehouse press is being restricted access to the upper press area near the Oval Office, raising eyebrows amid escalating global tensions. Obviously, this is going to cause a lot of people to be highly suspicious, considering the hand-selected new press corps that exists at the Pentagon. So are we going to see something quite similar in the Oval Office very soon? All of this during a government shutdown on a weekend where 40 million people might not get their benefits. Everybody's on edge. You have political assassinations abound, and war could just flare up everywhere at the same time. And you got Tomahawk missile deliveries on the horizon and nuclear testing in tow. It doesn't really look that good, right? I mean, we were promised Epstein files and a Fort Knox audit, and this is what we got, right? Well, I told you this is what we were going to get. Why? Because they're all grifters. There's a video of Tulsi Gabbard circulating in 2019 where she is cautioning Trump. Not cautioning, she's saying This would be an illegitimate war if we violated Venezuelan sovereignty and went in there and tried to do regime change at that time. Do you hear her now? No, because anybody that gets into politics, 99 out of 100, and I would venture to say 100% if the price is right, are all just grifters, okay? Maybe they get some esoteric information when they get on the inside, and that's what changes their minds. But even then, would it really be justified? Probably not. A federal judge in Rhode Island blocked Trump from halting SNAP benefits during the shutdown. Now, here's how Trump responded. He said, "I do not want Americans to go hungry just because the radical Democrats refuse to do the right thing and reopen the government. I've instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP, as soon as possible. It will be my honor to provide the funding, just like I did with the military and the law enforcement pay." So he's saying that he was able to find the money to fund law enforcement and the military, which I presume might not be nearly as much as feeding 40 million Americans. Nonetheless, this indifference is probably not going to sit well with a lot of people. And it seems as though this could be a potential flashpoint for something. I really suspect that this could be the black swan that collapses the entire system, because I'm getting vibes that they're getting ready to do that. They're getting ready to crash the everything bubble. Everything's got to burst, whether it is the stock market, whether it is just personal debt, whether it is housing. All of these things are hyperinflating. Even cryptocurrency, even gold, arguably, is hyperinflating. And that is why the price of gold never really fundamentally changes. If the purchasing power of your dollar has been halved in the last few years, then expect the price of gold to double if measured in those dollars. Russia's 9M729. I talked about the through line between Donald Trump leaving the INF treaty, the Russians utilizing a missile that could be arguably construed as that would fall under that class of missile with a 5,500 kilometer range, the Orezhnik missile, right after Trump won the election, and all of the other anomalies that tie this story of Trump's relation to the intermediate nuclear forces ban and Vladimir Putin. And now you have Trump, the first thing he does out the gates, we're going to give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles that were at one point banned by this same treaty. And now Russia is confirmed to be using missiles with a range exceeding 1,200 kilometers, with estimates up to 2,500 kilometers. So they've not officially stated, I guess, based on this report, that they're using them, but now they're trying to say, or at least the Ukrainians are trying to say, and this is what we got to think about, are the Ukrainians just trying to say this? It really doesn't matter. We know whose team Trump is on. I mean, look at Viktor Orban, what happened to him today. Even after ingratiating himself to Trump for months, if not years, Donald Trump did not give the Hungarians a pass on Russian sanctions, which they wholly rely on. They need that pipeline to be functioning in order to meet the energy and resource needs of their population. But Donald Trump would not give them an exception. That is how powerful the clutches of whatever sort of cabal is affiliated with that whole Ukrainian program. That is how powerful they are. And this is what I've said from the start, okay, is that you're not going to be able to stop a freight train like that. No president could. I didn't expect him to. Lukashenko has threatened action. He's saying to the Latvians, don't push back. Don't push your luck, he says. We can strike things if it goes badly. We'll sit down with Putin, make a decision, and boom. Belarus is preparing to deploy the Orezhnik system by December within their country. Remember, they certainly do have nuclear weapons now. And here is Marco Rubio drawing a connection between the Iranians and the Russians. He's saying the reason the U.S. is preparing to attack Venezuela is the influence of Iran and Russia in that country. Reports indicate Iran plans to build drone plants in Venezuela. Right. Here's what Medvedev had to say to Brussels. Brussels could be a good nuclear testing ground for our new doomsday weapons. He mocked Belgium's defense minister, who, while congratulating the Poseidon nuclear-powered drone test, saying that unlike the Burevestnik, the Poseidon can be considered a true doomsday weapon. Anyways, guys, you don't want to end up like this guy right here. Happy Halloween if you celebrate it, by the way. You want to get prepared. So if you want to get prepared, you know where to go. Clean out the warehouse here at CanadianPreparedness.com. Get your food at Freeze Dry Wholesalers. Link will be through the description below if you live in the United States. I can't ship food there, but Steve over at Freeze Dry Wholesale certainly can. And if you want medicine, go through Jace Medical. If you want antibiotics, prescription medicine for when the supply trucks stop rolling, go and check that out. The link in the description below. Those are the three big things you need. The gear, the food, the medicine, everything after that is on you. The skills, the training, and the community. Thanks for watching, my friends. Take care.